joining us today on this brand new episode of Startupsdilse. This is Anthony Prakash, your host for Startupsdilse. Unfortunately, my co-host Riddhi is having fun camping somewhere in California, so I'm left with do this myself. I am pleased, though, to be joined by Abhishek Prasad, whom I've known for a couple of years now. Abhishek joins us from Bangalore. First of all, I need to say thanks to Abhishek for taking this on a Sunday evening his time. Our schedules didn't quite match, but he was kind enough to record the show on a Sunday evening. So thanks a lot for Abhishek. So before I pass it on to Abhishek to introduce himself, a little bit about how Abhishek and I met and why we're here, why we think this is a relevant episode for Startupsdilse. So first up, we have to give credit where credit's due. So we'll say thanks to Jose for connecting us in Bangalore from Jose Khalil from the TIA Summit. That's where Abhishek and I met. And Abhishek happens to be part of JLL. I don't think anyone listening to this podcast probably has not seen the JLL logo anywhere. They're all over the place. I mean, they're a real estate management. They do a lot more than real estate these days, and that's what Abhishek's here to talk about as well. Specifically, as part of JLL in India, in Asia, Abhishek leads what they call as the Idea Labs, which is to enable startups, brand new ideas, technology in the space of PropTech. You could define PropTech very loosely these days. There's a wide array of things that you could fit into PropTech, but we'll hear it from the expert himself. So first up, Abhishek, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got to JLL, maybe a little bit about your journey before you got to JLL. Abhishek, over to you.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for having me over. And yeah, it is 8 in the evening on a Sunday, but the podcast said startup day. So when it's straight coming out from the heart as somebody who's been an entrepreneur, I didn't want to give up on this chance. So thank you so much, Anthony, for having me over. Yeah, that was a nice one. There's probably not many who don't know JLL, right? We've been there for 270 years across the world. One of the largest real estate management consulting firm or an international property consulting firm that we are. Yes. So today I lead this innovation program called the Idea Labs, which is very unique. I think we will deep dive into what we do. But how I landed up into Idea Labs is pretty funny, or rather very exciting as well, is because I was a partner to Idea Labs in my past life. When I was part of a startup, part of the early team, 0 to 1 journey, you really wanted a platform where you want to try your theses, right? And that's when Idea Labs happened to me. And then in between COVID, the team from there reached out saying, you know what, I think there's an opportunity and you will be the right fit for this because you've been in the startup space for long and specifically in the real estate or prop tech space within India. And that's how this happened. And I'm happy it happened, right? I mean, we are a startup within a very large organization, fortunately with good sponsors. And that's what makes it so much easier for us, JLL. Yeah.
That's great, Abhishek. Startup within a big company is both good and bad. Good in the sense, I mean, obviously, you don't have to go anywhere for funding. Bad in the sense, I mean, you are under a gun, right? I mean, you're under a microscope, so to speak, to deliver. So it's got its own challenges. So let's talk a little bit about, before we actually get into Idea Labs, why don't you tell us about, your journey to JLL? I think if I know you right, Abhishek, I mean, you've been a startup guy all along, and you probably tried to do a startup while you were in college. Maybe let's do a little bit of a flashback to how you got to JLL. What is it about startups that excites you, and what excites you about this role specifically, Abhishek?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I have to go to where I started from college, it's going to be a long conversation. So I did a few things. I mean, I was developing websites in 2007, where dot-com boom was just happening in India. We were going to the small and medium scale businesses, telling them, you know what, the future is on the internet. You need to have a website. So I worked with everybody, packers and movers, loans, artists, worked with a lot of makeup artists and designers, anybody who had a small store, right, who thought they were a niche and they had a small store, I would go ahead and build a website for them. So I did somebody who ran a store in one of the five-star hotels here, which was selling pashmina shawls. So I did something for them. I did one of very large packer and mover. I did something for lady whose daughter was a makeup artist for Sushmita Sen while she was the Miss Universe or Miss World. What
Yes,
was
yeah.
she? Well, I know she was just beautiful. Yeah, yeah. So I did her mother's website. She was my neighbor here in Bangalore. So this way, right? I mean, this is how it all started for us in college because we just saw how things were shaping up. And of course, back in the days, I wouldn't shy away from saying that a lot of the people migrated back from the US, mostly the Southern Indians who were there for 10 years. They're like, okay, I think India is going to be the next thing. They would come here. They would come with a lot of money because you're doing USD into INR. And then they would want to just replicate
Yeah.
the face of the market. So that was where India was back in the days. That's how it started. Then I did something in life science. I did something with the advertisement firms. And to be honest, my first startup was, Bangalore was really the night life child for India. It is where the partying began in the country. We were called the pub capital of the country at one point in time. But then after parties, you would just go to the only thing that you would get was a few late night eateries where people would just rush in for food, and that was not available throughout. So we thought, why don't we're a Cosmo city, we don't sleep 24/7. 8 to 8 life was the past. Either we are partying or you're working, or there are folks in the startup space thinking what to do next. So we thought, why don't we kind of create a virtual kitchen? And the best MVP was for us to try it in the night. We did that for 3 years. We were one of the first virtual kitchens in this country. So we scaled it up to three centers in Bangalore. Very large aggregator was practically my neighbor. So next door, that he started his operation. That's how it all started. But then it was whatever different story. We couldn't convince the investors. We had to wind up. And then I was like, okay, what do I do now? I really didn't know if I could go back and fit into a regular 8 to 8 job, right? I mean, that was not really the thing because I'd already seen what it means to be doing at a startup pace. That's when we were ideating, and smart homes was just picking up in India. But the only concept of smart homes that we knew was buying these smart sockets with the Chinese manufacturers on Amazon. That was the only smart home, but really people didn't know what smart homes mean. I don't think even now very few in India understand what a smart home can actually do to us, right? So, and then of course, like everybody, we were also influenced by Steve Jobs and his thought of influencing people. So that's how Imagine stores played a big role in our mind, right? I mean, whenever nobody sells to you at the Imagine store, you just go there, experience these products, and then see, you make a decision. And I bought maybe 3 or 4 MacBooks just because I was influenced very early in my life. So we started something called the Smart Home Cafe in Koromangala. We worked with a lot of startups. We bought them from across India. We give them an exhibition space. We would invite people over for movie nights, game nights, where the first half would just be a regular experience and the second half would be completely smart. Like you would be controlling the entire house with a ring. There will be robots moving around. The cameras just work, the doors unlock, the temperatures, everything would be smart. And that's the experience we did. And that kind of gave us an opportunity to influence a lot of design when people were going to construct their house. And that's where it became really good for us. While that was happening, again, the unfortunate, while it was good from a societal level, the demonetization move, it did have an impact on few businesses, and one of them were us. While I cribbed about it back in the days, I think it was a great move. It propelled India in the digital curve ahead. So after that, again, what to do was a question. That's how my entry into commercial real estate happened, where I dabbled around lighting controls. Then we did something around space. That's when I started interacting with JLL, and it became more and more interesting when I talk to JLL, is because they have this wealth of knowledge. It's like you don't have to do any research at all. You just have to go talk to these folks here, and they just know everything. Most importantly, what they know is how people accept these solutions. What does it mean to different stakeholders? Because that's the power of somebody being in the industry for 270 years, right? So when we started building, this would be our test bed, and that kind of got me very close to JLL and the leadership here. And mid COVID, when they gave me this opportunity, I didn't want to think twice. So I still remember me making the statement in the interview room as well, when the board was interviewing me. I said, "This is a spiritual journey for me," because twice I failed. Because sometimes you don't have a mentor, you don't know where to test it, you're just experimenting on it on your own. But today, what we've achieved is platform for startups to accelerate their growth, right? So literally, when I say accelerate, they can go 0 to 1 and 1 to 100 in a very short span, and we might probably discuss a few of those case studies as well. So when this platform was, an opportunity to manage and lead this platform was offered, there was no thinking back for me. I was like, okay, this is a spiritual moment for me. Like they say, spirituality means different for different people. So this is how it happened, and now here I am at JL, and pretty happy that this happened.
Very nice. Why don't we pivot there? That's a nice segue into talking about JLL itself. I mean, it's obviously it has a super rich history. They've been there, done that for a really long time. Maybe for people who don't know, where is JLL headquartered? Obviously, India is a rising economy, and they're investing heavily into India. So let's probably start there, Abhishek, to talk about JLL itself as a company. And then maybe let's deep dive after that into talking about what was the need for Idea Labs to be created. I mean, why did JLL and you think that there's a need for Idea Labs? And let's talk a little bit about what Idea Labs does.
Definitely. If I'm not wrong, 270 years ago, I might be a little flaky with that history, but it's sometime during the war that we actually started. In one of the history books where you go back, people didn't know where their property was because all the markings were just gone. There were no more buildings after the war. So that's where we started, and then we migrated to the US, like every other large business did back in the days. West was the new gold. So that's how we re-christianed ourselves, Jones, Lang, LaSalle. I think two companies came together, and that's what we are today, what we are. We are headquartered in Chicago, the global headquarters, while we have presence in most of the countries. And that's something which is very unique to JLL. Like any large firm, while we have a global presence, we also have a very strong local presence, because real estate is close to the hearts of the people. It's been there from humanity's time, right? In different forms and shapes and sizes. So that's how it is. And while we've been there for 270 years, we of course want to be there for the next 270 years as well. Sometime in 1617, there was a new pivot to the organization itself. So the new CEO, Christian Ulbrich, I remember everybody in the organization mentioning about this historical moment when he comes on as a new CEO and says, you know what, we are no longer a real estate firm. We are a technology firm specializing in real estate. And I think he was much, much ahead of his time, where people were just thinking about a few technology tools here, automating Excel. He was really thinking about creating or bringing in the DNA of technology into the organization. And that's the birth of JLL Technologies. I don't think any other real estate firm has invested into technology the way we have done. Uh, and I think that's where the whole journey started. And then, of course, we have the JLL Spark, which invests into a lot of the startups in the Valley, in Europe, in India as well. We've done a few investments here. So while all this was happening, the West Asia leadership, or the India leadership, realized that India has always been a service market, but somehow I think we've got this jugaad of churning out software products, right? We see a problem, we just want to churn out a software product. And this was one industry which is not being touched much by technology. I would still say we are a laggard in this. And I still remember talking at one of the events here at the real estate events. I said, if probably all the real estate in the world was digitally transformed, I think we will hands down beat the Googles and the Microsofts of the world, right? Because we've hardly scratched the surface, and so a lot of the guys saw this as an opportunity, like us, like in my past life, right? I was making lighting controls, making them democratizing lighting controls, bringing in wireless capabilities, bringing in space analytics. So a lot of folks like us, were trying to disrupt the space, right? And while this is happening, the leadership thought, it becomes interesting if we wear the hat of a technology advisor as well for our clients, because when they are transforming, it makes sense for us to be a part of their journey. So some of it we might have been solving, some of it startups could be solving, but can we be a trusted advisor, right? Unbiased trusted advisor. That's how it started. So that's how Idea Lab started before my time, and folks like us would just latch onto it, and we would be treated with opportunities to go interview consumers, I'm sorry, buyers, and then build tech solutions for them. That's how it started. And so while that's the birth of Idea Labs, we were focusing on three things, and we still focus on the same three things. It is people, planet, and processes for us, right? How can I improve the life of the occupants inside any building? How can we create a sustainable future for ourselves? Because 60% of this carbon emissions is somehow tied back to your real estate, right? Either you're in a factory or in a building or a room or anything like that. So how do we bring in efficiencies there, and how do we optimize processes as well? Because a large chunk of our clientele is still commercial real estate, so process becomes interesting. So how can we do that this time? That's where it started. So while we started as an innovation lab, today what we are experimenting. Do I go after this, or we could continue this, Liz?
But what you said a little while back, I mean, to your CEO, seeing that vision or that having that foresight to think about JLL not just being a real estate company, but I mean, just being a technology company basically focused on real estate, right? I mean, I think we are seeing that more and more these days in the market. I mean, even the Walmarts of the world, I mean, they've been traditionally a retailer for a really, really long time, a long history. And then all of a sudden, I mean, they take a pivot. I mean, we are first and foremost a technology company. They're starting selling to, other firms, retail technology, so on and so forth. I mean, even Tesla for that matter, right? I mean, as much as it's a car company, I mean, you look at it, it's all about technology, right? So that's fascinating that JLL's CEO had that vision to do that. So that's super commendable. So part of the idea here, Abhishek, is part of your focus, right? I mean, is Idea Labs more like a VC fund sort of thing where, you identify, say, top 10 ideas per quarter, you bring them in, you nurture them, you give them, whatever support they need, connections. I mean, I think these days connections are more important than dollars or rupees. What are the things that, I mean, let's say there is an entrepreneur out there having a brilliant idea, especially for the India market. I mean, what are the boxes they need to check, for example, to be part of, say, Idea Lab that you run?
Sure. So I think I'll answer the first question, which is, are you an investment partner? Idea Labs itself doesn't invest into startups. What we do is be the growth partner to a lot of these startups. In the second question, I'll answer how we become a growth partner. And then when they are ready for the big check, we anyways have our own fund, the JLL Spark coming and investing, right? That's what we do. The second thing is, like I was mentioning, we're very early. Anywhere in the world, we're very early in terms of technology. While there is one spectrum where the founders are talking about something dabbling around neuroscience or understanding space better, but on the other spectrum, you have landlords and developers and tenants still trying to think what's the next technology that they need to bring in, right? So there's a huge gap in this, how people perceive technology in our industry. So what Idea Labs essentially has pivoted, or something which we've been driving as a team of late, is we've been experimenting with this thing called the venture clienting model, which is the biggest advantage for the startups in a venture clienting model is growth becomes the natural byproduct of this process. That's the first thing that we have been able to offer to the startups. And of course, us, we kind of are able to be better partners to our clients as well, right? And that's what we've been able to do now. So now to answer the second question, at what stage does a startup fit into our venture clienting model? It becomes easier if they at least have an MVP, right? At least a minimum viable product that we could dabble on, and we could build a product from there on and then give them the scale. But having said that, we are like this testing lab where we even worked out something which is just out of a napkin as well. So an idea which is just jotted down, and not just from India, we keep doing this from with folks, startups across the world as well. There is a case study where a product which was entirely built for a different industry happened to see what we post somewhere on LinkedIn, reached out, and then we kind of co-created a product for this industry as well. All of those is also accepted by us. But if you want to, you start seeing value in terms of tangible metrics, either sales or growth, is when you're just above being an MVP.
That's perfect. And I wish personally a lot more big companies do something like this, right? I mean, because, first of all, they have the money. Second, I mean, they could use this to propel their own companies if they fund it. So it's great what you guys are doing. So a couple of things based off of that. Obviously, you are seeing, meeting, talking to so many of these folks. I mean, let's say they have it on a napkin, their idea, like you said, or an MVP. What are some of the latest trends that you're seeing, Abhishek, with respect to PropTech or just technology trends in general? I mean, needless to say, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of AI related ideas. But what other trends are you seeing come your way in the last 6 months to 12 months?
Are you okay if I go a
Yeah,
little back
please.
in time? 2017, uh, when the early market was happening, I think it was more on energy, because that is something which you could see on an Excel, and everybody just wanted to build another solution which would help them achieve energy efficiency, reduce your OPEX cost. That is what happened, and then the COVID happened, and during which it was all about occupant health and experience, and a lot of products started churning out. I still remember at one point in time, metaverse we were also dabbling with to see if that's going to be the future, a probable future as well for us, right? And in fact, we did one experiment here in India. We wanted to see what does it exactly mean to be in a metaverse as well. So that was one stage of the 20s, 21s, and after which I think sustainability is really picked up right now. It is the holy grail for the real estate market, is because investors are talking that language, the government is talking that language, the occupants are talking that language, because fortunately everybody is tied down to the 1.5-degree goal, right? And everybody wants to play a role in that. I know it is not an easy thing to do, with considering growth of 1.5. It is a challenge. Organizations are figuring their way out, and that's where it is kind of creating opportunities for a lot of the startups to build solutions focusing on sustainability. So when I say sustainability, it's just not about technology. There's a lot of effort being put into right from the materials as well. A lot of material science that is happening. There's a lot around technology. How can you make your space more sustainable? That is again bringing in energy efficiency, understanding people better, and then there's also a lot of efforts. That's where I think concepts of Web3 and AI is becoming relevant, is in terms of reporting your sustainability as well, because you want it to be auditable, you have multiple stakeholders involved, and then you're living in a trustless economy. So a lot of Web3 experiments are also something which we are also engaged in. And then that's where AI is also becoming more playing the role of an advisor today, or that insight prompt that it can give us. But I would love to see a future where uh, it actually takes over a lot of these mundane jobs, and humans are better off doing what they do, which is their cognitive abilities itself. So this is how the trend is shaping up. So it started with energy, moved into people experience and health and safety, and then now inching towards sustainability. But I think sustainability will be that one big digital net fabric which will stitch everything together, because sustainability is just not about energy, it is social, which is people and how you treat them, live with them, how you work with them, and then governance also. So, more or less, all your business operations will somehow come and sit under this digital fabric. And that's how I think a lot of it is shaping up now. Yeah.
Awesome. So one of the tracks that you mentioned, sustainability, probably we'll just double click on that a little bit. So earlier this last week on Thursday, I was part of a Silicon Valley meetup. There were people from all over the world joining, talking about trends and what's going on in their part of the world. So one of the discussions I was part of, I mean, there was this venture fund, somebody from venture fund saying it is really hard to make money off sustainability and energy related initiatives, especially reducing those carbon emissions and trying to meet those goals, like you said. I mean, on one hand, I mean, yes, as humans, as a planet, we want to do that so that, I mean, the planet's the same way for future generations. But I mean, do you have a take on that? I mean, is it hard to make money on sustainability related initiatives, whether it's just saving water, or reducing how much you burn, or recycling stuff and things like that? I mean, any thoughts there, Abhishek?
Yeah, I would have also echoed the same probably a year ago if I not was not fortunate to be a part of a few experiments. What we realized in these experiments is, I think it's a different lens altogether that we need to look at. Sustainability is no longer sitting just in an Excel. It's no longer about your business line's profit and loss, but you're seeing it as a business on the whole. And why I say that is today, I'm sure you're also experiencing it. A lot of the younger generation which is the future of this world, aligns themselves with sustainability. They want to have a better future. So just imagine, who are we all building these businesses for, right? That's the future that we are catering to. And if your consumer is going to be demanding you to be a responsible business, I don't see a reason why you should not be sustainable, because that means that's the only way you're going to reach your next future business market, right? I mean, as businessmen, we've never built for while we never built for tomorrow, right? Tomorrow we build it for the year or 3 years after that, right? That's how production economics work, and that's the first thing that has changed, and that has kind of changed how we look at a lot of things. I'll give you a couple of examples. And the second thing is, if somebody says trying to save energy, you will not make money, or you will not see an ROI, I think there's something really wrong with the design itself. Maybe I'm a little candid here, but we've seen more and more experiments of people investing in energy and saving. Today, in fact, there have been models which have been proven. And when I say models being proven, I'm talking to a scale of 10 million, 20 million, 50 million square feet, where organizations are coming in and investing into it and saying, you know what, I will help you reduce 30% energy. You only pay me if I give you any results at all, right? If somebody is taking that as a partner, coming and joining hands with you, I don't see a reason why it is not going to happen. And going back to the first one, is it important to be a sustainable brand? I will take an example without naming the client. A very large tech brand, having large portfolio in India, they were very sure that they want to be seen as a sustainable brand. That's something which they practice, and they wanted to talk about it as well to their own employees, who are their first stakeholders, and to the larger market as well. So they started investing in water saving measures. Very simple it sounds, but it was a huge investment at the start. And if they had looked at it from a typical Excel sheet in and out, I don't think the decision would have ever been made. But today, when they look back, they see a few billion liters of water being saved. It's a great story. I mean, just imagine a CEO of a very large firm going and saying, you know what, boys, we've saved a billion liters of water when the whole world is going through a water crisis. That's the first message that went out well. And when we started putting the math around it, the number of trucks that have to get in the water for you, and you maintaining all of that, and it just made sense. But it was a patience game there. The client had to wait for a year and a half for all of this to happen. So I think it's a snowball effect, and people have to invest in the larger good. It's like education, right? I don't go into a college thinking I'm going to come out a millionaire. I'm going to go there, learn, and after 3 years I'm going to do something which starts giving me my first buck, and then I start making money out of that. But yeah, a lot of people have, we've seen a lot of success stories. I'm happy to talk
Yeah,
to
well
people.
said,
Yeah.
Abhishek. I mean, no wonder they say patience is a virtue, right? I mean, everybody wants to plant a seed, the tree to grow the next day and bear fruit. I mean, it's not going to happen. So this whole initiative on sustainability, I mean, is going to take time. We need to sow the seeds right now. That's what everybody needs to realize. So thanks for sharing that. A couple of other questions for you. Now, I've seen you post on LinkedIn calling on folks from, say, Europe or US to say, hey, I mean, if you are focused on, say, X, Y, Z, this is an area in India to invest. Calling for ideas from outside the country as well. So, from an Idea Lab perspective, I mean, are you looking at only India-focused founders and ideas, or it can come in from anywhere as long as they're trying to help, the Indian market? Can you clarify that?
I feel so happy to say this, but it's nothing to do with anything else at all. It's just that it's a very cool word from the older men, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. I think we're all just one big family on a one big ball, right? So the advantage with India, and I think that's something which I picked up from Joe's and the India Advantage Summit. We are truly a Cosmo country, not just a city as a country in itself. We have people from every country in this world living in some part of this country. We have businesses from everywhere sitting here. So the advantage for us experimenting in India is you're actually truly building something for the world in itself. We have enough and more examples: the Zohos, the Freshworks. We can go on with that. The ONDC now and the Beacon Protocol and everything. I think it is primarily because every other organization has its largest presence outside of its HO in India, and it becomes easy to experiment in India. I think it naturally comes to us, the jugaad nature in us, to kind of figure out how to do things, and that's the reason I think India is going to be the next big future for next big innovation cradle for us, for all of us. And the reason why I keep calling out for folks from everywhere is because there's a lot of innovation happening here. And if investors or large organizations want to test their theses or invest into a thesis, they can actually do it at one tenth the buck here, right? Of what I'm doing in the Valley or the Europe. That's the plain reason of me calling investors to come and do. And some of them have taken that and they're very happy with what they've done. That's one side of the story. And for the startups, I don't think regional approach to building products is going to be viable going forward. You really have to expand your market. Even if I'm sitting in some office in Paris or if I'm working out of a garage in London, I'm really not building it for the European regions. I want to cross the seas, go to the US or come across to the global south. And that's why we keep calling is because all of us somehow are facing the same problem. It could be different environments, but we are all in the same thing here. So it makes sense. And we've seen a couple of success stories. Somebody from the US was building something around artificial intelligence on CCTVs, basically. They were using it for a different thing, and now we were able to use them here. Of course, bit of a modifications to suit the Indian environment, and it became magic. And somebody to do with sustainability reporting, working in the US, was finding it hard to get their early customers. They come here and they were like, okay, what am I going to get in India because I'm building it for global frameworks. I said, most of these guys are exporting out, so naturally you have to align yourself, and there's a bigger market for you here as well. So that way, I think it's a good exchange, and that's why I keep calling out and seeing how we can bring in collaboration in the next
Nice,
two
nice. I
sides.
mean, what you're saying reminds me of what people tell about our Indian traffic as well, right? If you can drive in India, you can drive anywhere else. So you can succeed in India with your idea, you can probably succeed anywhere else. That analogy applies there as well. So let's wrap it up with this. I mean, since you're from Bangalore, Abhishek, you mentioned a Cosmo town, Cosmo reference a few times. I mean, I've been to Bangalore a few times myself in the last few months, and I've been just amazed at the energy of the place. I mean, no wonder they say it's in India, Silicon Valley. I mean, it's been there like that for a long time. You live and breathe Bangalore every day. Can you maybe tell the listeners here, people who are watching us here, I mean, what Bangalore brings to the table for startups, founders, and probably other cities don't have. It's your opportunity to do a 2 minute pitch for Bangalore, lightning
Lightning
pitch
pitch.
for Bangalore.
Oh yeah, yeah, I love to do this. I mean, if you see Bangalore, right? I mean, we've invested into education right from pre-independence days. That was the biggest gift that the city had. Of course, not denying that the other cities didn't have, like the IIT Madras, which has been a pioneer in engineering. But we had a right mix. We had management school here. We also had Indian Institute of Science here, and that's how Bangalore was started to look upon as the next best education cradle. And that's what attracted a lot of talent to come in here because people wanted to come here, graduate out of here, and then the government invested into it. So we have very good infrastructure in terms of uh, what is called as a Navratan industries. So that's how the whole industrialization sparked here. And then the birth of Infosys, Wipro coming out of and expanding here, TCS expanding here, and then the startup boom. So today, what has happened with Bangalore is at one side you have a very strong education network which is constantly churning out young talent for you, so across the spectrum, right? You're really not talking just of the top league but also mid league, local league. You have all of them coming into Bangalore, and then this existing infrastructure of large IT firms who could be your customers. You have IT, you have manufacturing, you have other forms of industries here, everybody sitting in one city. And then on the other side you have bunch of these founders who have exited their previous firms as well, all sitting in India, so that access to capital has become easy. And now they all know that future is because once you taste the success, you want to taste it again and again. So they keep investing. So access to capital has become easy. So it's like this holy trinity, right? You have education, you have access to capital and talent here, and that's something which we offer unique to the anybody who wants to come into Bangalore. And from a sustainability perspective, because that's one of the topics, I think we are one of those few cities where the government has come together, formed a climate action cell where people are involved, businesses are involved. And it's not just about making a pitch deck anymore. So people are actually being invited to pilot their solutions. They get funds for it. They get to implement it. And all of this data is being put out in the open market. And all of this, and with leaders like Nandini Nilekani or Pramod Verma or the Bansals, everybody sitting out of here. I think we truly are not looking at maximizing impact, but creating a future. If you want to do that, that's the biggest advantage, and that's the reason global capability centers come here. A lot of the VCs want to be here, set up office here. Tim Draper House is here. First started here and then moved to Hyderabad as well. So a lot of that action is happening. I think that's the. I think we are truly mimicking the Valley experience here. Probably this in Bangalore could be the 95, 2000 of the Valley. India has always seen that, right? We didn't touch the phone. We suddenly are leading digital operator in the world, right? Everybody has got a phone. So just imagine what will happen if in the next few years, with so many more founders exiting, so much more access to capital, we will just be the cradle or the anchor for innovation and technology and infrastructure going forward. Yeah.
I mean, I think you said Holy Trinity. I would say the secret weapon there is all the breweries and the beer, right? So after a hard day's work, I mean, you go sip a favorite
Yeah.
beer. I mean, there's no dearth of that in Bangalore. Anyways, so I think with this, we'll probably wrap it up. Abhishek, I want to thank you for taking the time again on a Sunday. I think this was an eye-opening discussion to, number one, PropTech, the fact that companies like JLL are leading the way in investing in new ideas, new technology to propel, what to expect in the future for our future generations. I think sustainability is a super important point that you brought up that we all need to keep in mind. And for those of you who are looking to invest in India, I have an idea on PropTech. I'll be sure to publish Abhishek's details as to how you can reach out to him. And if you're interested in more of this topic, we'll be happy to bring on Abhishek back again. So thanks everyone for listening in, tuning in. Thanks again, Abhishek. Take care.